Tonight in 9 News, together at last, families and friends back in each other's arms as the Queensland border reopens after 141 days. A very different story in the West, Mark McGowan to stay closed until February. Masks at the shops to be ditched within days, but is it too soon? Caught on camera, the brave shopkeeper who fought off gun-wielding robbers. Fighting to the end, Frank Maguire begs for his political career as several former ministers are dumped. And with 12 days till Christmas, we honour the community heroes helping those doing it tough.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Alicia Loxley.
Good evening. Nearly 5 months of heartache has been healed with hugs. Queensland finally reopening its borders, allowing friends and families to reunite. As Mimi Becker tells us, 10,000 Victorians took the chance to escape to the Sunshine State.
141 days of division and despair over in a single moment. Tears were flowing as the border reopened, the first flights touching down in the Sunshine State.
It's just the most amazing thing, I can't tell you. I just been longing for this day for 6 weeks.
We didn't allow ourselves to really believe it was going to happen until today.
Families reuniting, back in the arms of loved ones. Others meeting for the very first time.
Oh, let's say hello.
On the Gold Coast, Julie Hogan had waited 5 months to meet grandson Jonah.
It's like heaven. It's like finally can connect, and people need connection. They need that touch.
Today's a happy day. Today's a great day. It's a very emotional day for many people.
The border finally opened at 2 o'clock this morning. The first cars crossed in the cover of darkness, police conducting random checks.
Proof of vaccination and negative COVID test, please.
A kiss hello between Anna and Mark, separated for 3 months while caring for a sick relative.
It's been terrible what you've had to go through. So yeah, it's good to be back.
At Melbourne Airport, there were warm welcomes too. Families finally back together.
I haven't been down here since before I fell pregnant, so we can't wait to go see Auntie Alex.
For Victorians chasing the sun, they could almost taste it, with a tropical send-off before getting on board.
Hello, Queensland, we're going. I'm actually relocating from Victoria. I've had enough.
We impulsively just booked because we're a bit sick of Melbourne, and as soon as we got told we could leave, we got the first flight out.
10,000 people on 30 flights will touch down in the Sunshine State from Melbourne today, but it's only going to get busier in the lead up to Christmas.
For us and all the cabin crew, it's just great to get back in the air again and do what we love doing.
A ticket on board, the pass to magic moments like this.
Oh my God, we're done!
Tears on breakfast TV as our own Christina Hearn reunited with her parents, all live on Today.
To see them here now, it's like a dream come true.
Amazing, isn't it? And Mimi, today was just the beginning.
It is, Alicia. Today was just day one of the border reopening, and there is set to be thousands of memories and precious moments to come as Victorians make their way to Queensland in the lead up to Christmas. Tonight there is still 11 flights set to land here in Victoria from Queensland and 3 flights set to take off. There's a lot of excited and anxious passengers on board who hope that the borders will never slam shut to us again, many saying they will never take travel for granted again. Alicia.
Indeed. Okay, Mimi, thank you. Although Queensland's borders are open, there are still a few hoops to jump through if you're heading north. Mark Burrows explains.
Restrictions still hang over the border. Anyone over 16 who wishes to enter must be fully vaccinated, but kids under 16 don't have to be. You'll need a negative PCR test within 72 hours before entering the state, and you'll need a follow-up test on day 5 of your stay or as close to it. Those are free at any state clinic, and your text message results will suffice. The final step is the entry pass, available from the Queensland Government website. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete. You'll need to bring that either on paper or your phone, along with your ID, your vax certificate and test results. Once you've arrived, you're subject to Queensland's close contact rules. At the moment, that's 14 days isolation, but from January the 1st, that's down to 7. So, a few steps. but it'll be worth it to reunite with family, go on holiday, or to hear those words again. Welcome to Queensland.
Breaking news now for you about the WA border, which will remain closed until February. Tracy Vo is in Perth. Tracy, Premier Mark McGowan has finally given a date.
Alicia, that date is February 5, more than 7 weeks to go until WA reconnects with the rest of the nation. It's been 616 days since those tough border controls were put in place by the WA government, but from February 5, travellers will be able to fly freely between the states and also internationally. However, there are some requirements. International travellers will need to produce a negative result within 72 hours of departure and 48 hours of arriving here in WA. Those fully vaccinated won't be required to quarantine. Domestically, all travellers will need to be fully vaccinated unless ineligible or medically exempt. And people staying here in WA for 6 days or more, they also need to produce a negative result similar to international travellers. But just repeating, WA will reopen to the rest of the nation from February 5, but families looking to reunite, more of a wait for them to get that moment, Alicia.
Yes, indeed. All right, Tracy Vo there in Perth, thank you. There are warnings tonight around ditching face masks in retail too early, with coverings slated to be scrapped beyond Wednesday. But with uncertainty around high numbers and the new variant, a top virus expert says shoppers should still mask up. Stephanie Anderson explains.
Masks are still the must-have accessory in our major shopping centres, but come Thursday you could be doing the pre-Christmas retail rush with a fresh face.
Yay! If it's close contact with everybody, I'll probably keep it on.
Wear it if you want to, don't wear it if you don't want to.
When detailing our 90% vaccinated settings several weeks ago, the government said barring a big jump in hospitalisations, retail customers could ditch coverings after December 15. By then, the new pandemic bill will be in practice. So today, the Major Events Minister avoided making any major announcement.
All sorts of things could conceivably occur. But I'm not going to speculate on what's going to actually occur.
But virus experts recommend keeping the safeguard a little longer, with a daily case number of 1,290 and a lot still to be understood about the new strain.
We know that Omicron is spreading in the community. We know it's likely to spread very fast. And unfortunately, us stopping wearing masks is going to allow it to spread even faster.
Victoria's count of Omicron cases remains at 3, as 9 other people await further results. The concern the variant could take off, a big driver in the push to boost the booster take-up.
We do know it's more transmissible. What we don't know is what it's going to be like in terms of severity.
If you're confused about boosters, here are the key details. They're currently being recommended for Australians aged over 18 who had their second dose at least 5 months ago. Both Moderna and Pfizer are available and safe regardless of which vaccine you had for your first 2 doses. And bookings can be made at GPs, pharmacies and state-run vax hubs. That is, once the government's website has been refreshed. It was still only allowing those who had their second dose at least 6 months ago to book this morning.
Those arrangements will be updated very, very shortly.
Stephanie Anderson, 9 News.
A terrified milk bar worker has been threatened at gunpoint by armed robbers storming her shop at Hillside in Melbourne's northwest. As Adam Hegarty tells us, the woman tried to fend off the criminals, but they overpowered her.
It's as frightening as it is brazen. Watch as these 2 young customers freeze in fear as they stare down the barrel of a gun. The armed robber waving them aside as he and his accomplice head straight for the woman behind the counter. Incredibly, the shop attendant's first instinct is to swipe away the handgun, her attacker forcibly grabbing her before, shockingly, keeping the weapon pointed at her head. She's the business owner's wife, working alone, and she was terrified.
She can snip and 2 days ago she can work. Yeah, very scary, feeling very bad.
First, they help themselves to packs of cigarettes. Then, as the 2 customers make a run for it, one barely school-aged, the gun-toting crook orders the worker to pop open the register so he can pocket the cash. All of it happening in broad daylight, 4:30 Saturday afternoon at this Hillside convenience store. Before, bravely, the worker musters the courage to chase after them, spotting the 2 thieves fleeing in a blue Ford. And that's led to an arrest. A 24-year-old man charged with theft, unlicensed driving and 2 counts of armed robbery. Police say he robbed another store earlier in the day, while his accomplice is still on the run.
I hope the police get them suddenly. This is happened, so we're very worried now.
Adam Hegarty, 9 News.
The careers of 7 sitting Labor MPs are all but over tonight. An emotional Frank Maguire is among those cut by the party's national executive who took control after the branch stacking scandal. State political reporter Mark Santomartino.
Fighting to the very end.
I'm a boy off the boat. I grew up in Broadmeadows when it's the end of the line.
Frank Maguire waited outside Labor's Victorian headquarters with a letter this afternoon, desperate to sway the party executives who crushed his career.
The poor and the powerless get done over in secret deals behind closed doors. I shouldn't be on any hit list. What is this about?
The Broadmeadows MP has been axed from next year's election ballot. Former ministers Marlene K. Roos, Luke Allen and Robin Scott were also dumped, as well as Kushalia Vajella, all named in anti-corruption hearings into Adam Somyurek, while Caesar Mallam and Nazir Al-Azmar were bumped down their tickets.
Today is going to be a very difficult day for a number of my colleagues.
What, if any, effect this afternoon's vote has on the government's ability to pass new laws remains to be seen after a number of these MPs threatened to break ranks.
Party internal processes sometimes get pretty messy.
That is not a government of the people for the people.
When Matthew Guy lost in 2018, ally John Pasuto did too, live on air.
It's not looking great and it's a very tough road back.
With the 51-year-old Liberal to return unopposed tonight as a candidate for Hawthorn.
If you ask John, he'll tell you straight out that he's got a job to do to win his old seat back.
A right Frank Maguire says he should have been afforded.
I'll still be in the parliament. I'll still fight every day for the people who need to be fought for. They're counting on me to stand up and represent them. That's my job, that's my duty, and that's what I'm going to do.
Mark Santomartino, 9 News.
Commuters are facing major disruptions with the city loop to be closed for major works. Safety faults identified a decade ago now need to be fixed, and the cost of the repairs have blown out to hundreds of millions of dollars.
These are really, really important safety issues that impact on every single commuter, and the government has just let that go.
It's likely the shutdown will begin in 2023, but it's unclear how long it will last. A gunman is on the run after shooting a man in broad daylight in a quiet Geelong street. The 40-year-old is fighting for life as detectives probe whether an argument broke out over a motorbike. Crime reporter Lana Murphy.
The gentle hum of a Sunday afternoon shattered by gunfire and the screams of a man left for dead on his front lawn.
He's on the run and he's got a gun.
We got some ambulances coming.
The 40-year-old was bleeding out in the Bell Park street, shot in the abdomen and arm as he stood next to his car in his driveway.
So
He's bleeding out big time from the start.
he said that he doesn't know the person and then he came and just got the gun and shot him.
Neighbours surrounded the victim, who ran door to door begging for help after he was ambushed by a lone gunman before 5 p.m.
The guy's still on the loose somewhere.
He looked straight in my eyes and said, "I've been shot twice." Hopefully we've saved his life. No one deserves it. No one deserves to get shot like that.
As critical incident response teams swarmed the suburb, detectives cordoned off Carissa Muse. They focused on the man's ute. Its tray was open and a dirt bike was splayed on the road.
We do believe it belonged to the victim. We don't know exactly how that motorbike fits into the situation.
Investigators say the gunman was on foot and that he fled through this parkland, but where he went, who he is and what his connection to the victim is, well, that's still unclear, and the gun is yet to be found.
The victim's known to police, but certainly we don't think anything within his background has brought this incident on.
It was so terrifying. The only thing I could think of straight away was my kids hide in my closet.
Tonight, the man continues his fight for life at Geelong Hospital. Lana Murphy, 9 News.
A man accused of threatening to kill a woman in a Box Hill park is on the run from police. Dyer approached the woman on Whitehorse Road this morning. Investigators say he grabbed her and made the threats before leaving. He's known to frequent Shepparton, St Kilda and South Yarra. Pressure is mounting on the Morrison government to extend a temporary tax cut to middle and low wage earners. And there'll be a further boost to the economy when the international borders begin to reopen to students and skilled workers from Wednesday. Political editor Chris Uhlmann.
Another sign of hope with the first visit to Australia by a foreign leader in almost 2 years. President Moon Jae-in from South Korea here to sign a strategic partnership and a $1 billion defence contract. Very good. More of his countrymen and women will follow from Wednesday as the international border cautiously reopens.
Both to Korea and to Japan, and for skilled migration and for students.
And that will help drive an economy surging back from East Coast lockdowns.
350,000 jobs have been created already since the start of September.
The bounce back will boost the Treasurer's 4-year budget forecast.
So much so, we think the budget will be more than $100 billion better off when the Treasurer announces his budget update.
The budget will still post big deficits for years and gross debt is ticking towards $1 trillion. But the improvement to the bottom line has sparked calls to make a temporary tax cut permanent. The low and middle income tax offset can cut tax by up to $1,080 for those earning between $48,000 and $90,000. It was extended this financial year at a cost to the budget of $7.4 billion, but is currently set to end on June 30.
So we'll wait and see. If something doesn't happen, then what we know is that people will get a tax increase in July next year.
Any election pledge will be paid with borrowed cash. Chris Uhlmann, 9 News.
Well, for the first time in 4 years, the Socceroos are heading to Melbourne. The team will be here on January 27th for a World Cup qualifying match against Vietnam. And it's hoped a crowd of around 30,000 will pack Amy Park for the crucial match. Our Cup campaign hangs by a thread.
In the past, there's always been some always fantastic support from the fans. We really need our 12th man, and I'm really appealing for all the football fans down here in Victoria to get out to the game here, fill the stadium.
The last time the Socceroos played in Melbourne was back in 2017, a 2-1 win over Thailand. All right, now here's Tony Jones looking ahead to tonight's sport.
Thanks, Alicia. Good evening. Among our stories tonight, the Magpies continue to weigh up just what to do with Jordan De Goey. But one of his teammates has put the bad boy on notice.
That alleged behaviour is just something that we can't stand for.
Also tonight, we're live to Adelaide, where the Ashes have come to town, but there's one Aussie under real pressure. They're calling it the greatest F1 finish ever, and it's not over yet. And a day on, throwdown just gets uglier. Now it's the court announcer in strife. We'll play you what he said mid-match. That's all coming up a little later on, Alicia, including, but wait, there's more, including one of the most ridiculous rules in cricket has been abolished.
Oh, OK. That's a good tease. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Thanks, Tony. Coming up, a 14-year-old boy beaten with a baseball bat at Roxburgh Park tells 9 News he doesn't know why he was targeted. The desperate search for survivors in Kentucky as the tornado death toll climbs. And the Australia Post Christmas deadline, how to guarantee your presents will arrive on time. A boy beaten by a gang of thugs while playing soccer with his friends says he doesn't know why he was targeted. He's told Maggie Rayworth he's fearful of returning to the park.
An unprovoked and vicious daylight assault. This is 14-year-old Josh after thugs attacked him at Roxburgh Park yesterday. Security cameras captured his desperate cries for help. The group of 5 attackers came after Josh at Arena Recreation Reserve.
I saw one pull out a bat from his pants and then just started saying, "Who's Josh? Who's Josh? Who's Josh?" That's when I just started running.
But they caught up with Josh and beat him.
I tripped and then they started hitting me with the bat. Hit my leg, then I just blacked out. When I woke up, I just looked around me. I looked at my hands, I just saw blood all on my hands.
Josh was taken to hospital where he received 10 stitches near his eye. His cuts and bruises will heal, but he's traumatised. Josh says the thugs fled when a Good Samaritan ran over to help. The 14-year-old says if it wasn't for his rescuer, his attackers may not have stopped. All this too confronting for a loving father to hear.
I got to the ground, I saw him on the floor, covered in blood and things like that. I got in and look.
Police want anyone who recognises these people to come forward, while Josh's father hopes his son's attackers have a conscience.
Give up, hand yourself in, you've done the wrong thing,
Maggie Rayworth, 9 News.
It's now officially too late to send your gifts by regular post if you want them to arrive before Christmas. But if you've left your shopping right up until the last minute, Express Post remains an option if you send them by next Monday, December 20. Australia Post expects to exceed last December's record of more than 52 million parcels for the month. Well, we have one of the highest rates of champagne consumption in the world, but we could be forced to go without this Christmas. There's a shortage of some popular brands of bubbles, and limits are even being imposed on how many bottles you can buy. We'll tell you why a little bit later on in the bulletin. The death toll from the monster tornado in Kentucky is nearing 100, with children among those killed. 1,000 homes were wiped out by the twister, the worst in the state's history. Michael Genovese is there.
Piece by piece, the Kentucky cleanup is underway. Strangers working together to salvage what's left of Mayfield.
So you were sitting in this recliner when the tornado hit?
Yes, sir. Right there about where you're standing watching TV. And that's when I told you I got that feeling and my ears was trying to pop.
What were you thinking?
Oh,
devastation, catastrophic. Never seen anything like this.
Some here have lost more than just their homes. At the site of the town's old candle factory, digging continues without luck as family members pray.
I know you're okay down there. The last everybody heard you was talking, and I hope and pray you are still talking, and to let them know that you're down there.
It was feared more than 100 workers were inside the factory when the tornado struck. It's unclear how many made it home. Management says they followed their emergency plan.
In our facility, the center of the building and the bathrooms were that location because there's no windows. It's surrounded by concrete walls, steel roof.
No one has been pulled from the rubble alive in 48 hours. Kentucky's death toll could top 50, putting pressure on the state's morgues. Among the dead, a district judge, along with children aged just 3 and 5 years old.
The damage is devastating. Entire blocks, more than one block, with nothing standing.
What do you do from here?
your guess is as good as mine. Yeah, it's just a one day at a time deal now. Lost everything we own.
A cross on the wall means that this house has already been searched. Police are going door to door, sweeping neighbourhoods in the hope of finding someone alive. But 2 days on, and reality has set in.
The President will visit Kentucky in the coming days, a disaster zone in a state of emergency. In Mayfield, Kentucky, Michael Genovese, 9 News.
An explosion has ripped through an apartment building in Sicily, killing at least 3 people. Rescuers are still searching for 6 occupants who have been missing since the blast. It's believed it was caused by a gas leak that led to the collapse of 3 other buildings, but they were all empty. An obscure Bosnian film has swept away the competition at the European Film Awards in Berlin. Quo Vadis Ada won Best Picture, Director and Lead Actress at what is often referred to as the European Oscars. The film about the 1995 genocide in Srebrenica was made on a shoestring budget and was produced remotely during lockdown. Amazing. All right, Madeline Slater is here now with all of today's weather details for us. And the city was back in the 30s again today, Maddie.
That's right, Alicia. Summer kicked off with a couple of days in the 30s and it was finally back there today, peaking at 32.7. But a cool change is closing in from the west, and that's been dropping temperatures by around 10 degrees in half an hour. It reached Geelong shortly before 6 p.m. and it's already dropped from 31 to 23. It's due in the city in about half an hour, and when it arrives, the southwesterly winds will be very gusty. So anyone enjoying an evening at the beach will get a nasty surprise. But while southern parts of the state can expect a run of cooler days, the heat won't clear out of the north for many spots, so they will stay in the 30s for all week. But Melbourne is in for a midweek slump, and I'll have those details later in the bulletin. Alicia.
All right, Maddie, we'll see you very soon. Coming up, 6.5 years jail for the man who fatally stabbed an aspiring personal trainer. Next, find out why the killer was given a discount on his sentence. Plus, 85 days and counting, the volcano that's still erupting. And the quiz night photo that the British PM has lived to regret. A man who stabbed an aspiring personal trainer to death as he left an Oakley gym has been jailed for 6.5 years. Lyndon Aliti was today given a discount on his sentence, partly because he has epilepsy. Court reporter Eliza Rugg.
Linda Maliti says he stabbed Thomas Tran to death because he was frightened after a brawl involving more than 20 young men near Oakley's Eaton Mall. But text messages show the 19-year-old labourer was full of bravado in June last year. Moments after he killed Mr Tran, Aliti told his friends, "That's one down now, confirmation." Mr Tran's family sat silently in court today as Aliti was jailed for 6.5 years after pleading guilty to manslaughter. 20-year-old Thomas Tran had just left the gym. He was unarmed and walking away from the large fight when Aliti stabbed him through the heart.
His adult life was just beginning and was so full of promise. It is every parent's worst nightmare.
The killer ran to a nearby shisha bar and burnt his SIM card into the charcoal. He's been on bail for more than a year after his lawyer, Robert Richter, argued he needed to live at home, not in custody, so his family could monitor his epilepsy. Because of Aliti's immaturity and his serious health issues, the judge has recommended that he be transferred to a youth justice centre as soon as possible, instead of serving out his sentence in an adult prison. He could be out on parole in a little more than 3 years. Eliza Rugg, 9 News.
Electricity prices are at an 8-year low. The ACCC found the average bill fell by $128 to $1,434 last financial year. But household bills are 32% higher than they were in 2008 when the watchdog began compiling data. The reasons for the fall include more solar and wind generation and cheaper coal. The UK Prime Minister has brought forward booster shots for millions of people as Omicron sweeps across the country. But Boris Johnson is also facing a rising wave of anger, with a photo emerging of him socialising with staff during lockdown last year. Mark Burrows has more.
Quiz night with the Prime Minister. This photo reportedly from December 15 last year. Boris Johnson sitting between two colleagues at a time when indoor household mixing was banned.
What do we see in that picture? We see a Prime Minister on a virtual quiz night for 10 to 15 minutes to thank his staff.
It comes less than a week after this video was leaked.
And it was not socially distanced.
Showing staff laughing about a Christmas party which was allegedly held at number 10.
Now that trust is broken and many people are now saying, well, if the Prime Minister is going to allow breaking of the rules, parties, quizzes, well, why should I follow the rules?
It's been a brutal week for the PM. Former Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, delivering this blow on Breakfast TV.
I've known 12 Prime Ministers in my lifetime, and by a country mile, Boris Johnson is the worst. Somebody who has made his career through ducking and dodging and diving and dissembling and deceiving people.
Boris Johnson avoiding any questions or criticism, releasing a pre-recorded message instead to announce all adults will be offered a booster by the end of the year.
It is now clear that 2 doses of vaccine are simply not enough.
As Omicron tightens its grip on the UK.
1/3 of infections now in London are Omicron.
Hospitals now starting to see patients with the new variant admitted.
We are transitioning this virus from pandemic to endemic, but there are big bumps in the road, and this is a big bump.
Mark Burrows, 9 News.
It's now the longest eruption of the volcano on the Spanish island of La Palma since records began back in the 16th century. Thousands of people have been forced to evacuate in the past 85 days. Countless homes have been destroyed and financial losses are running into the millions. Emergency workers are fighting a constant battle to keep the ash from submerging houses and roads. A state of emergency has been declared in almost 50 cities in Brazil as floods wreak havoc. The heavy rain and strong storms have caused at least 3 deaths, a 26-year-old man and his nephews killed when a house collapsed. Dozens of towns have had their drinking water cut off, while thousands of homes and bridges have been severely damaged. Still to come for you in 9 News, trapped in trees, the paraglider whose day didn't quite go to plan. Plus, the generous Victorians working hard to ensure no one goes without this Christmas. And the great champagne shortage, why a Christmas Day favourite might be hard to come by this year. A flying start to the week came to a crashing end for a paraglider near Wollongong. It was quite the rescue mission for emergency crews, taking 3 hours to free the man who was left hanging in the trees. Thankfully, the glider was not injured and walked away safely from the scene. There are just 12 days until Christmas, so every night until the big day, 9 News is honouring Melbourne's community heroes, filling hearts with the spirit of the season. Tonight, Maggie Rayworth reports on the charity drives now in full swing across the city, where volunteers say the impact of the pandemic is showing.
At Vinnie's, volunteers wrapping and packing 700 presents in the lead up to Christmas, all going to people doing it tough.
The presents we give these families and single people, a lot of single people, that will be the only Christmas present they get.
Maribyrnong City Council is providing the room and space is running out.
Right now I'm wrapping up some books for some very young lucky girls. I also saw a fairy floss machine, that's something that I would have liked.
Meanwhile, at Toy Networks in Reservoir, the Variety Christmas Drive is also in full swing.
From soft toys to robotics kits, as well as Play-Doh, etc. Working to create that positive joy that every child deserves.
All going to people like Manuka Cooper, who just celebrated Hanukkah thanks to the support of Variety. She's a mum of 5 kids, one of whom has special needs.
By Variety sending these gifts to the other children as well, it's showing that they're all part of this together.
Helen and her husband Ian have been volunteering for 18 years now.
It's a great charity and I just love doing for the community and the children especially.
Will you be coming here for another 18 years? What's next?
I hope so. We might get the sack.
Last year, nearly 5,500 children were supported by Variety. Due to the pandemic, that figure has dramatically increased. This year, it's expected nearly 10,000 kids will receive help. People can donate to either Vinnie's or Variety simply by visiting their websites, so everyone can have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Maggie Rayworth, 9 News.
Well, to finance news for you now, and the ASX 200 rose nearly 0.5% today, boosted by the energy and materials sector. BHP closed at a 3-month high, rising nearly 3%. And our Australian dollar is buying 71 US cents and 54 British pence. Australia's love of champagne, coupled with the pandemic, has helped to create a global shortage of bubbles. As Alan Raskell discovered, some retailers have even been forced to introduce purchase limits ahead of Christmas.
Sacre bleu! Is our champagne bubble about to burst? We've been popping so many corks, we've been warned it's impacting champagne supply.
Oh my goodness, talk about a serious situation. Yes, there is a champagne shortage.
So-called champagne dame and Real Housewife of Melbourne, Kyla Kirkpatrick, has been a champagne educator since 2005. She started import and distribution business Emperor Champagne in 2017.
You do have the perfect storm. You've got low supply and really high demand and, we've got a shortage.
It's led to places like Dan Murphy's implementing purchase limits on some lines, but they are still pretty generous, 12 bottles per person. Australia is ranked 6th in the world for champagne exports. Last year, 8.5 million bottles were sent here, up 11.2%, the second highest total of exports to Australia on record. But what if your favourite fizz isn't available?
There are 261 brands of champagne coming to Australia at the moment, and it's potentially even a great time to try something new.
Well, it's long been claimed monk Dom Perignon invented champagne as we know it today, and when trying it for the first time, he apparently exclaimed, "Come quickly, I'm tasting the stars." So if you want to taste the stars this festive season, might pay to get in quick before it's all gone. Cheers. Alan Raskell, 9 News.
You better hurry up and get my Christmas present.
Yeah, tell you what, I might have to knock a couple of those off before those stories come on, just to get through them. Anyway, thanks, Alicia. Plenty of sport coming up for you. We're live to Adelaide, where selectors could be faced with a tough decision ahead of the second test. Also, Grundy delivers some home truths to teammate DeGoey. The GP decider that'll go down as one of the greatest ever, and the... Collingwood ruckman Brodie Grundy says the club must make a stand when it comes to embattled star Jordan DeGoey. While the wayward Pie remains in limbo, Grundy says work to improve the culture at Olympic Park must remain a priority. Alicia Muelling reports.
There was no escaping a gruelling morning at Olympic Park. An injured Scott Pendlebury watching with a wry smile as his teammates were pushed in the heat. There's also no escaping the elephant in the room, the absence of Jordan DeGoey. And today, Brodie Grundy stood tall.
We've gone through a lot as a football club over the last 18 months to 2 years, and we're working really hard to try and make this club something that we're proud of, and that alleged behaviour is just something that we can't stand for.
The 25-year-old remains stood down by the club after he was charged with assault in New York in October. DeGoey's future hanging by a thread as he prepares for another court date next month.
The actions are one thing, but there's the human side of it as well. You do empathise. For him being overseas, by himself at that point, you do think that would be pretty scary.
DeGoey has been spotted training with local Bellarine Peninsula club Leopold, coached by former Magpies assistant Gary Hocking.
I think he'll be a big enough boy to be able to deal with training away from the group.
If he is welcomed back into the Collingwood fold, playing catch-up won't be an issue.
There's no reason why Jordan can't be upskilled in any of the game plan and stuff like that.
For his part, the two-time All-Australian has relished an off-season back home in Adelaide as he enters a new era under coach Craig McRae.
Yeah, I've lost a few kilos, trimmed up, just trying to give myself the best opportunity to play my best footy, and I think it probably starts with just having a really good pre-season, getting as fit as I can.
Alicia Muelling, 9 News.
Australia has touched down in Adelaide ahead of the second test, minus Josh Hazlewood, who now has officially been ruled out because of injury. Let's go live to Cam Inglis at the Adelaide Oval. Cam, selectors have made a bit of an earlier decision.
Yeah, they certainly do, Tony. Big Josh Hazlewood was noticeably absent from the Aussie squad, which landed here in Adelaide just a few hours ago. He's flown to Sydney and is already eyeing off a return for the Boxing Day test. But it's West Aussie quick Jai Richardson that is tonight, the front runner to replace him for the second test, which starts on Thursday. But the other option is the uncapped Michael Neser, who just took 7 wickets for Australia A. Selectors will also be keeping a close eye on David Warner, who is dealing with bruised ribs, but it's actually his fellow opener Marcus Harris who's facing a battle to save his spot after failing to impress in the first test.
There's no doubt the selectors will be sitting around thinking, well, what is the right combination? If Khawaja gets an opportunity and Warner doesn't play, he then has an opportunity, Usman Khawaja, to make a score and put further pressure on Marcus Harris.
Now, England are also expected to make several changes as they look to level the series 1-1. Tony?
All right, thanks for that update. Cam Inglis there reporting live from Adelaide. There continues to be an ugly fallout from the basketball derby in Melbourne yesterday. The NBL will investigate several incidents from the fiery match, including this comment from United's court announcer regarding Phoenix's Chinese import. Then there was the melee sparked by Mitch Creek's slam dunking of Matthew Dellavedova.
Yes, sir. Yes, Creek took a body. Oh, here we go. And Mason Paintling barrels in over it. And tempers have flared in throwdown 13.
Phoenix alleges United's coaching staff later directed inappropriate comments towards Creek regarding recent legal matters. The NBL review began today, and just as a footnote to that, that court announcer has muzzled himself for the next 2 home games. Red Bull's Max Verstappen has claimed the Formula One world title after arguably the most controversial finish in GP history. Mercedes has since appealed the result after Lewis Hamilton was relegated to second on the final lap. Ed Woolley reports.
From the opening lap, there was high drama.
Oh, and there, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton almost coming together.
Red Bull incensed after Lewis Hamilton wasn't penalised for driving off the track and off into the distance. The title in his grasp until a twist with 5 laps remaining.
That will be a safety car.
That allowed Max Verstappen to dart into the pits for fresh tyres, his team demanding a restart.
Why aren't we getting these lap cars out of the way?
Because, Christian, just give me a second.
Despite a number of cars remaining lapped, in effect out of order, Australian race director Michael Massey made the fateful call to resume the race.
No, Mike, that was so not right.
The World Championship to be decided in a single lap, a single moment.
Hamilton sees it coming. It's a late launch by Verstappen, who takes the lead of the race.
Verstappen holding off one final surge from Hamilton to unseat the 7-time champion.
Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world.
It made for an outpouring of emotion on the pit wall and indeed underneath that helmet. Verstappen at 24, the new king, in the most controversial of circumstances.
Finally a bit of luck for me, yeah.
Still, a beaten Hamilton was, at least publicly, gracious in defeat.
This last part of the season we gave it absolutely everything, and we never gave up, and that's the most important thing.
This the explanation given to Mercedes director Toto Wolff, who since lodged an appeal after 2 separate protests were dismissed.
Toto? Yes. It's called a motor race, okay? Sorry? We went to car racing.
Ayrton Woolley, 9 News.
Amazing stuff, isn't it? So is this. One of cricket's more unusual bans has come to a welcome end. Now, for the past couple of matches, Melbourne Stars' 2 imports, Andre Russell and Quay Ahmed, despite completing quarantine, have effectively been ostracised from the team, despite being allowed to actually play with them. Now, this is Ahmed celebrating a wicket last night. Air high fives, and here it comes, a clapping circle. Now they can not only sit with the team, they can fly on the same plane. And yes, they can even high five.
There's nothing like a good air high five.
Let's do it
Reminds
now.
me of an air kiss, Tony. I'll leave it there.
Must be your cue for the weather, is it?
It is. Maddie, thankfully, returns now. A cool change is moving across the city, Maddie.
It is, Alicia. It hit Geelong just before 6 and the temperature's dropped by 10 degrees since then. It's also whipping up some gusty winds. I'll have more on that and tomorrow's forecast next. Hello again. Melbourne hit the 30s for the 3rd time this summer. After an overnight low of 15, the city peaked at 32.7. Most suburbs stayed in double figures overnight, and once the sun came up, the mercury was on the move. It fell short of the 30s across Mount Dandenong, but elsewhere maximums all began with a 3. Moorabbin, Werribee and Avalon were the warmest, hitting 34. Geelong reached 33, but it was the first to get the cool change just before 6, and it's dropped back to 20. It arrived in the southwest of the state this morning, so Portland reached its maximum of 23 at 9:30 a.m. Temperatures are dropping by around 10 degrees in 30 minutes as the change moves through. But in Gippsland, onshore breezes have kept it cooler all day with maximums in the high teens and low 20s. In the Coral Sea, Tropical Cyclone Ruby is currently a Category 2 system, and although it's expected to intensify, it's sitting too far offshore to impact Australia, and it will continue to move further away. For us, the trough will hang around tomorrow, and it's expected to trigger isolated showers and storms across the central and eastern ranges, but there's very little rainfall expected. Northern parts of the state will have another hot day with maximums in the mid to high 30s along the Murray, but it will be cooler through the south in daytime temperatures, the low to mid 20s. It'll be a mild night around Melbourne with minimums mostly between 14 and 15. We'll have cloudy skies to start the day, but there should be some nice breaks of sunshine in the afternoon. Northern suburbs will be the warmest, 26 at Yarra Glen, 24 at Ringwood and Melton, but mostly 21 and 22 for areas south of the city. And after tonight's gusty change, it'll be quite calm tomorrow under gentle to moderate southerly breezes. The city is forecast to be more than 10 degrees cooler than today. After an overnight low of 16, it's heading for 22. Cloudy skies on Wednesday and a little cooler, 20 degrees. It should stay dry. 21 on Thursday under partly cloudy skies, then mostly sunny and 29 degrees on Friday. A windy 33 on Saturday, but a cool change is expected, so back to mild conditions on Sunday and Monday with maximums of 24. But the city will cool down tonight as the change sweeps through. After dipping to 16 degrees, it's only heading for 22 tomorrow, but warming up again by Friday, Alicia.
Just in time for the weekend. All right, Maddie, thank you for that. And that is 9 News this Monday. Layla is up next with a current affair. I hope you have a great evening. For now, good night.